Hello and good afternoon to the fifth edition of the Digital Factory Virtual Dialogue Series. So today we will be discussing a very interesting topic that has to do with the fintech ecosystem industry in Africa. And to assist us in this discussion, we have in our studios Norbert Jiwonu. Hello, Norbert.
Yeah,
How are you
I'm
doing?
doing great. So
It's great to have you here.
it's great being here.
So Norbert will be representing the startups point of view in Africa. And the next guest that we have on our show is Mr. Nelson Amo, who is the CEO of InnoHub. Hello, Nelson.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's nice to have you on our program today.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, so our third and final guest is Mr. Daniel Kwabena Owusu, who is an ecosystem champion and the associate of Ghana Tech Lab. Hello, Daniel.
Hi, Dorcas. How are you doing?
Daniel, can you please speak louder? I can't really hear you.
Hello, Dorcas. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's better now. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so to set the ball rolling, I'd start with Norbert since he's right here with me in the studio. I'd begin with Norbert. So Norbert, tell us what exactly is going on in the fintech ecosystem at the moment. Can you give us a brief overview before we kick things off?
All right. I'm happy discussing things that has to do with fintech. Fintech is in Africa is a big business. Almost every investor is jumping to bet on startups within that space. And even recent data from Brighter Bridges and other data analytics platform that has to do with the fintech ecosystem have been given a clear visualization of the number of funding that are going into fintech, the number of investors that are trooping into Africa to bet on fintechs, and the emergence of a whole lot of fintechs across Africa. So I think the data that I have at hand even like it shows that in Ghana alone we have like 36 plus fintechs. In Nigeria alone we have like 144 fintechs. In South Africa we have like 156 plus, and in Kenya I think 80 plus. So this demonstrates that fintech is gaining a very strong momentum across Africa. This can be largely attributed to the fact that if you study the trend over time, um, especially with the emergence of COVID. COVID happened and it gave us an opportunity to see the real value of how we can go digital in terms of how we transact cash. And so the timing was good, and because of that, we are seeing more people engaging in mobile money transactions, and it gave more opportunity for these innovators that we're working with to come up with innovative solutions to help people have access to great financial products and services. Yeah.
Okay, so Norbert mentioned something that had to do with data. And speaking of data, I have a very interesting projection from, I think this is the big deal, Africa. And they released something recently. I think I'd read this out for the audience to hear. So they said, I quote, in 2021 so far, African startups have raised a whopping $1.14 billion through deals, 1 million and over. This is more than double the amount raised in H1 2021. And to our audience, H1 simply means the half of a fiscal year that's in business. It's like from January to June, that's like half of the fiscal year. So I continue. Nearly half of the funding went to fintech startups. It is worth noting that this share is higher than in previous years, where most of the fintech funding was raised in H2, 89% of it in 2019 and 76% of it in 2020. So based on this data, Nelson. Hello, Nelson.
Hi, Abnewa, I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much. Based on what I just read from the Big Deal Africa on their projection, I want to ask you, why exactly is there an interest in fintech Because it seems the trend has been steady for the past 5 years, but like as Norbert mentioned, it's really increased because of COVID. So why has there been an
Yeah.
increased interest in fintech startups all of a sudden?
Okay. So I would basically use one expression to explain the trend. And the expression says, show me the opportunity and I'll show you the money. And that is one thing that I think startups would always need to have in mind when engaging or when they've been building the business. What opportunity does this business present to investors? For any investor who you are seeking to engage, the first thing they are thinking of is what is my possible returns on that? And I think one clearest way to show that is the kind of market opportunity you present. And when you listen to most fintech's pitch, it's quite succinct and it's clear who is the target market, what they're going to transact on, what will be the returns, and typically you would see margins on transactions, charges on transactions, what have you. And some of these are very easy to articulate and to communicate. And so once you have any opportunity where the promoters are able to easily communicate and articulate to investors and show them the kind of revenues to be making, I think that really would feed into the opportunity or your ability to attract or unlock funding from them. So in simple terms, show me the market opportunity and the investor will show you the money as you're looking for. And that is what is happening for the fintechs at this stage. As Norbert mentioned, opportunities from COVID, showing how there's more virtual transactions, um, as difficult as it may be, there is more processing going on. We see how the mobile money market really is overtaking transactions in banks, where MTN recently was said to have overtaken transactions from one of the biggest banks on the West African, I mean, specifically Nigeria. I think these things are showing investors market opportunities that they would have to explore. And it's important for startup founders to think of the market opportunity anytime they are building to engage investors from them. Thank you.
Okay, Nelson, you mentioned it's important for founders to take advantage of this opportunity, but don't you think we have too many fintechs in the system? Because most of them are offering basically the same thing. They are all either Momo transactions or they are in B2B transactions. It's like basically the same things coming out day in, day out, but then with different names and different forms of branding. So don't you think we have too much or too many fintechs in our African ecosystem space at the moment? Or you think we need more? What exactly is your take on this?
We we have so many fintech ideas and so many fintech startups, but we don't have many fintech winners on the block. And we cannot have enough. There are so many sectors that we could actually. And again, sometimes we should look at it as an enabler of various sectors. How can you use fintech to be an enabler in areas like health access, in agribusiness, in logistics movements, and what have you? So I think we should see it more as a means to an end. And how many of these enablers do we need for the various industries that we're looking to support and to grow? So right now, we do not have enough. We don't have many, as you say. We have many ideas and many wannabe fintechs, but I think we need to find the right mechanism to support these various fintech ideas to be able to really, as it were, achieve the objectives and set up a thriving business.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Nelson. Kwabna, let's hear from you, please. We want to know, how does this affect the other sectors of the tech ecosystem? We have the edtech platforms, we have the health tech platforms. How does this affect them? Since it seems most of the funding, at least, not at least 9 out of 10 of investment funding goes to fintech startups. So how does it affect the other um, tech businesses that don't benefit from this, and how can they leverage on this to make themselves more attractive to investors?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Not really from my
Hello,
end.
is it
I
better
can't
now?
really. Yeah, it's better now. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So thanks. So first of all, I would say that within the word fintech, it covers a lot of areas from insurtech to personal financing, lending, all that. So yet it's majority of the investments are within the ranges of a payment as against the insurtechs and all that. But as Nestor did say, it's about be those tech products to what people the other fintechs are having. Against the background, if you watch the numbers as compared to Ghana, uh, South Africa has a close to 154 fintech entities, as against Ghana having 38. Even though there's competition, so and the market is still open. Nelson will tell you that the market is still open. It's just for you to position yourself well and do what you say you are doing, and not changing your focus in terms of whatever you are doing. But one thing you should also know, no matter the type of product they are bringing on board, there'll always be a payment aspect of it, which other entities are working on. So it's either you merge to run it, or you do it and do it well.
Speaking of the markets being open, it seems we have a lot of foreign investors tripping in to Africa within these past few years. We have Silicon Valley, we have the Y Combinator, we have the Chinese, we have the Japanese. All of them are tripping in to invest in African fintechs. Kwabena, do you think this is going to affect investment in Africa in any way? Because it seems they are rather coming in to get equity in these startups, and then those who are actually here are being disadvantaged. So, do you think it's going to have any long term effects on African investors, not the startups, the investors
And
themselves?
no, I think this will be a wake up call for investors in our local context. Reason being that if outsiders are seeing the big picture and we are still honing on to the risk factor for either a seed or early stage startup, then that's where the challenge is. Because if you watch the foreign investors coming in, they have that window of margin to take the risk, to test the product or the entity they are engaging with. But as against most investors here are more risk averse for the local um, fintechs. But the reason here is with some, let's say, with few conversations I've had around with a few, is because of the early days fintechs that came on and that had with funding, they were able to sustain the funds and they were able to do what they're supposed to do. So you know how it is, if it has affected in this area, therefore A, B, C, D, they'll not be able to do. But it's interesting to know that the same investors that we have here in Ghana are rather investing in Kenya and other African markets. So it's for we, as I said earlier, to pivot ourselves well. This inflow of the what foreign investors will rather give much more faith and much more build the interest of them to now either merge to do or do it and do it well, because local innovation with support goes way faster than others.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Norbert. Hello, Norbert.
Yeah.
So, I'd want to ask, do you think the over concentration of fintech startups is going to have any long term effects on Africa? Because we have a lot of other economic issues that we have to solve. We have health crisis, we have educational issues, but then it seems everything is going to the side of the fintechs.
Yeah.
So do you think it's going to have any long term effects, say within the 10 to 20 years?
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to have any effects from that?
Yeah. So I think Nelson made one point that I would want to lay more emphasis on. He said, I mean, show me the opportunity and I think I'll show you the money or something like that. And I think that's what demonstrates or validates what a growing industry looks like. And I mean, if that industry is witnessing increasing growth and there is increasing penetration of funding inside, you definitely see more saturation there, because even though the barrier to entry on the fintech side is now high, because due to the capital requirements on the regulated side and all that, we still see them coming up one way or the other. At the end of the day, you are still going to have the big guys sitting at the top, like the Paystacks and the likes, who are doing trying to cover all the aspects of the fintech ecosystem. So I mean, long term, you are not going to get that saturation. You are going to see more of a desaturated fintech ecosystem, because by then we would have win off, like we would have seen the fintechs that are going to stand the test of time. I mean, if an ecosystem is growing, you definitely see so many like guys coming up. But as to whether they can sustain that model, as to whether other industries will rise up to disrupt that ecosystem, also counts a lot. I mean, we are not going to see fintech becoming the market leader for a very long time. For me, I look at agri-tech even before fintech was leading. I mean, e-commerce was a market leader from like 2016 down through 2019, and I mean now e-commerce is not as strong as it should be. Now payments is on the ladder. So in the long term, we are going to see more of a desaturation rather than a saturated fintech ecosystem. So I mean, it's because of the timing. And you see, once there's an opportunity like this, there's that FOMO, there's that fear of missing out. So everybody will want to cash in, both the talents, both the investors, both the news agencies, both everyone. So the attention, the resources, the focus, and the energy will be tailored towards that industry so that they can promote. I mean, they can promote that industry in particular. And funny enough, there has always existed that huge financial inclusion gap. And I think there's that increased penetration of innovation. That's why Daniel was saying that in as much as we have the numbers in terms of the fintechs, you realize that most of these guys are looking at case specific scenarios, like, for instance, micro lending, not just micro lending on the consumer level, probably micro lending on an SME level, micro lending on an agri-based level. So, in as much as you are seeing the numbers, in as much as you are seeing the homogeneity and the startups that are coming up, they are trying to remodel themselves to be more case specific, sector specific. So they are doing more of health, fintech for health, like Nelson said, fintech for logistics, fintech for sectors that are case specific. So at the end of the day, you are going to have that curve flattened at some point in time. And once investors have seen the markets developed up to a certain point, then they can now have that confidence that, oh, I mean, we can invest in other sectors. I mean, it's also a wake up call to the other sectors to use the tremendous growth or the proliferation of funding and growth within the fintech space to use that as a case study to develop or to demonstrate or to communicate their value. So, for instance, like health tech is also gaining momentum, agri tech is also gaining momentum, and other areas like clean tech are also gaining momentum. For me, I foresee even logistics becoming one of the biggest hotspots across Africa. I mean, it's always been a buzzword, but the Africa Free Continental Free Trade would open up doors for startups within that area to, um, um, I mean, move goods in between countries. And also, I also see digital commerce, that's e-commerce, also coming back. Okay, so in as much as fintech is rolling now, we might see some balance in terms of where funding is allocated to in the short term as well. So yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Nelson. Hello, Nelson. Is Nelson on the call,
Yeah.
I'm here
please?
with you. Yes,
Yes. Thank you
I
very
am. I
much.
turned my microphone. I was not speaking. I'm happy.
Okay, so Norbert made mention of he foreseeing other fintech startups catching up very quickly with the fintech craze. So I'd like to ask, how can we hasten this process? Is there anything that these other guys have to do to speed up the process of them also catching up with the fintech sector?
Okay. Thank you very much for this question. So I think to start with, I would say we've seen some outliers, and these outliers on their own are basically good enough. And some of them are coming with good corporate experience. Some of them are getting exposure in other markets, in other global accelerators where they get some good funding to do what they have to do. So the outlier sometimes could get you almost to think that all is well. But matter of fact is there is a need for some kind of concerted and sustained efforts to support fintechs from various angles. And I'll give a number of approaches to support. And one of the approaches could be corporate innovation. For example, when you see banks who could basically partner a lot with fintechs, banks could basically design corporate innovative programs where they can more of backward integration, take a step down to see which fintechs are on the market, what are they doing, and which of them can we readily integrate into our operations. And if they find such, they can basically sponsor and fast track their learning path or their learning curve through various programs, support programs that they can design for them, coaching, mentoring, and most importantly, supporting the team financially to be able to design and innovate to feed into the bank's needs. So corporate innovation is a key thing that on the market we need to see a lot more being done. Bigger players again like telcos could also see how they could also give support to fintechs to see, especially those whose operations could fit into their or could integrate into the operations as a telco. You could see if you have a lot of these done, I think there would be room for a lot more fintechs to be able to succeed and not be crawling for so much before they get a chance to move up the ladder. As Norbert mentioned, unfortunately, I think it was Dan who mentioned, unfortunately, a lot of the fintech investments we've seen are coming from external investors who have seen opportunity and they are tagging on as it were. I think locally you may not have lots of individuals who can do the bigger ticket stuff fintechs may need, but if the banks and the telcos decide to really come together into the space, we could see a lot more traction in terms of how many fintechs could succeed. But most importantly, with corporate partnerships, the corporates could readily become customers for these fintechs, or they could become enablers who are going to help them and work with them to really explore the market. Could you imagine a fintech that has a partnership with let's say, an MTN? You immediately have access to over 5 million customers. And if you actually have only 10% of them signing onto your platform, it's quite a huge market for you as a fintech. So I think there needs to be more effort in supporting and really financing the growth of fintechs. And until we do that, we would only see the outliers and the big stories they are creating, but the others, so the let's say 30 out of the 37 may really be just struggling to do something without them. Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You are still live on Digital Times Africa Virtual Dialogue series. Don't forget to send in all your questions and comments or suggestions. We'd read them out here for you. So let's get the conversation going. We'd like to speak to Kwabna. Hello, Kwabna.
Hi, I'm here, dear.
Okay. Kwabna, I'd like to ask you, do you think there should be any instruments in place to censor the number of fintechs that are funded? Let's say in a pitch or like any competition or something, we should have a regulation in place to censor. So let's say we'd say 10 edtech startups should be funded or
Um,
15.
no, I'll say
Hello?
no. I'll say no
Okay, okay.
because I'll say no because none of our fintechs are even. We don't even have a unicorn yet in Ghana, as compared to the pay stacks and all that. We don't even have a unicorn here, so it's still a green field for
Hello,
everyone.
Daniel.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can you please speak a bit louder? We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me? Is it much better now?
Yes, yes, yes. This is better.
I'm saying that in my view or my point of view, I don't think there should be a cap for the number of fintechs to to be funded or to participate in any competition. Rather, they should be given the chance to compete. The reason being that we are still in the green space and we don't even have a unicorn yet in Ghana when it comes to fintech as compared to other African markets like the pay stacks and all. So, from my point of view, there should not be more encouraging them to do. And as I said, looking at the recent database with respect to fintechs, even in Ghana, that are known, they're only 38, as compared to other countries having 154, 127, 57, and all that. So Ghana is still growing within the space, so it should be open and encourage them to do more. And also, as Norbert said, be more specific and also push the agenda very and be positioned to get the funding that is needed.
But why don't you have why do you think we don't have a fintech unicorn in Ghana yet? Because Nigeria has around, I think, 3 or 4. They have Jumia, they have InterSwitch, they have Flutterwave, but Ghana doesn't have a single one. So why do you think this is the case?
One, it's about the resources in terms of talent. Two, it's about the market size. Three, it's about the volumes they have or they are pushing to get. So if the numbers are not up to certain threshold for certain investors, they don't come close to it. So if you compare the numbers Paystacks and Co are doing, it's much more than what we are doing in Ghana. And also, if you realize or assess, you get to see that in terms of most payment platforms that we use here, greater majority is Momo, as compared, and Momo is MTN in quotes. Other telcos are doing their best, but in terms of numbers, MTN stands tall. So, and if you double down to the Expenlys and all those other fintechs coming up, they don't meet those numbers. There are potentials, but then, as you know, in terms of risk factor, they want to assess to know how they can get in and help and also reach the volume. So I think it's about volume, it's about the team size and the focus of it. And it's sad to know that the majority of the fintech we even have in Ghana, they are not solely focusing on that product they've launched or they've brought out. They're also doing side gigs and other stuff. So in terms of focus of continuity, also becomes a case of concern here for an investor. So these and many other things are some of the reasons why it's still holding up to where they are now.
Okay, so we have a few questions for you from our audience, and we'll take the first one from Joseph David. He says, what's the role of crypto in facilitating the future of seamless payments? Norbert, I'll let
Yeah.
you take that.
Yeah. So crypto is a quite sensitive area, especially in our context, as far as Ghana is concerned. So, crypto would help facilitate seamless transaction. Me, from speaking of a cross-border perspective, also from a remittance perspective, but due to regulatory barriers, it's difficult for some of the fintech startups to penetrate within this space. In terms of that side of things, crypto long-term usage of crypto actually reduces the cost of transaction. It increases or it makes a transaction faster and seamless, and it also helps you people use crypto to kind of hedge their local currencies against potential depreciation. So they tend to hold more of dollars so that they can increase more returns on their investment. So crypto is good. I think government now is still exploring its use cases. That's why they've issued a public notice for people not to trade in cryptocurrency. So there's a temporary ban whilst the government is working on exploring the use of central bank digital currencies. That's the central bank CDBC. So In that pipeline, they've even come up with the fintech innovation sandbox, where they are trying to explore the use case of some of these emerging technologies, and also in the long term to help minimize the risk and impact of some of these technologies. Why? Because most of the financial institutions and some of the financial innovators don't really understand the potentials of this technology very well, and the way the crypto platform, the crypto network is developed. If you are not careful, I mean, people might lose their funds. So the government, even the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, has also banned crypto as a medium of exchange. So they are still exploring its use case. The Central Bank of Nigeria is also trying to launch their new central bank CD backed currencies. I mean, if you go to countries like Ecuador, where they are the first country to openly accept crypto to back their currency. So like they are using crypto as a means of what exchanging goods and services. So I mean, this is we are going to see major developments, but until the regulators are able to understand how these technologies work and how they can effectively regulate this space, we are going to hide under the water a little bit whilst they put in structures and regulatory frameworks in place to effectively regulate this sector. I mean, they are doing this not because they want to have that um, how would I say it, power over the ecosystem, but it's in the interest of customers. They are trying to protect the interest of their customers. So, for instance, I don't know if you follow the news. There was a hack in Turkey where I think close to 60,000 customers lost their crypto funds on one of the crypto exchanges. And just a few weeks ago, we saw same happening in SA where the markets there was a hack. There was an acclaimed hack where they lost I think
So
70.
17 companies were hacked by a Russian company.
Exactly, and the crypto exchange lost, I think, $3.6 billion in funds, and I mean these are customers' funds that has gone down the drain. So, the governments, especially in these emerging markets, for instance, in Ghana and Nigeria, the regulators would want to be very careful as to how they give space for some of these technologies to operate. For me, I'm very positive, and I know that in due time there will be major developments within the blockchain space. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very interesting one. Let's take the next question, please. So, with Nelson would take this question for us. Okay. These are actually comments. So, okay, yeah. They are comments. So let's proceed. Hello, Nelson.
Hello?
Yeah, good to have you back. So, Nelson,
Yes, I'm here.
so yes, post-COVID, after the whole pandemic is over, what do you think is the future of the fintech ecosystem post-COVID with the investments, the startups, and everything that's going on currently? How do you think it's going to look like after fintech COVID is over? Can you hear me?
I think not much would
Okay,
change.
can hear
Yes,
you.
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
I'm not much should and would change with COVID, because essentially show possible and what we can do and what we should be doing. I think when it comes to the finance sector and finance, the more you're able to use how much cash is in circulation and action, the better for any. So if fintechs are leading the way, and we're saying that it came up extremely because of COVID, I would actually argue that post-COVID we should continue same trend. So typically you see that people go to fuel and they want to buy their fuel using a Visa card or Momo. People go to a restaurant, they want to use something. People are using more transactions. And fintechs really are beginning to catalyze various sectors of the economy. I think this should be the way to go, COVID or no COVID. We've now seen it's possible. But challenge, I think, still on the back of the question why we don't have any fintech unicorns in Ghana, it becomes a numbers game. More transactions, more volumes begin to affect evaluation, and we're seeing the numbers in Nigeria, and even for them, they are still moving to other markets like Ghana, and you see how they want to still get a piece of the cake in this place. So the more we're able to get fintechs to be able to drive more transactions, the bigger their value could be. So we wouldn't have to get back to what you can call the old normal. But I think fintechs and transactions powered by fintechs should be the way to go. We want to see bigger players coming up, and we'll see how players like ZPay and the rest are beginning to be buy out other smaller entities in Zambia and what have you. We could possibly see how they could also maybe buy other smaller fintechs in Ghana who could be plugged into what they do from a different perspective. So we want to see bigger transactions and bigger volumes within the fintech space in Ghana, even post-COVID.
Okay, that's very interesting. Speaking of big players, Kwabna, hello Kwabna.
Hi, Douglas.
Yeah, Kwabna, do you think our fintech startups in Ghana, do you think we should be encouraging more mergers and more collaborations between them? Because it seems the Nigerian fintechs are really speeding up currently and we are still calling to catch up with them. So do you think we should be encouraging more collaborations, acquisitions and mergers between and among them?
Of course, of course. There should be, even if the bigger ones in Europe are doing, how much more we starting. So I would say that we should.
Hello, Kwabna, can you please speak a bit
Hi, can you hear me?
louder? Yes, this is better.
I'm saying that of course there should be a merger, because even if the bigger players in Europe and other markets are merging to serve the same need and get access to bigger investments and all that, we should learn from, we should pick a cue from that to meet the same need as we want to do. Because if you assess, and as you said earlier, a lot of fintechs are repetitive, or innovations being repeated,
Yeah.
trying to serve the same markets. But if we both do the analysis, their research analysis well, and get to see where each uh, fintech or startup strength is, they can come together to serve the same audience they are looking for. One downside is everyone wants to be I, so the avenue to complement each other in view leading to merging becomes a challenge. So because who is coming to merge and who is coming to pick engagement or decision from who? Because in quote I'm the CEO of it, or in quote I'm the founder of it, in quote it's my idea. You know what I'm trying to say? So if
Yes. Yes.
such thinkings are being demystified, and if such cultures are being broken and letting them see the bigger picture, because I don't know which of the fintechs in Ghana is doing 2 million volumes.
Kwabna, your voice is kind of dropping again, so can you please?
Hi, is it much better?
Yes, it's better.
I'm saying that, as if you take away the telcos doing their Momo transactions, I don't know any other fintechs in Ghana doing of more than 2 million volumes of transactions and all that on the regular or consistently. It means that it's either you come together to do the needful, or you just be in the shadows to struggle. So for them to get the bigger players to come on board to hold their hands up in terms of investments, I will wholly say that merging is key. Even if they don't want to merge with their local competitors, they should look for foreign competitors to merge with. With that, also, it gives them access to other markets to meet much audience. Thank you.
Okay, so there's another question here. I think I'd read that out. Quite recently, emerging startups are focused on building payment solutions. What are the disadvantages for other sectors that require tech to facilitate growth?
I would say, with respect to this, it still comes back to the case specific of what the others are doing. If whatever they are doing is just for education without payment, then there's no problem. But if what they are doing needs payment, then they will still come back for on those who are doing the payment aspect of the value chain. So it's just for them to learn or understand the processes within the value chain and how and where they fit in. You can't do it alone.
Hello,
So,
Kwabna.
hi, can you hear me?
Okay, it seems you've lost Kwabna.
Hello.
Hello, Nelson. Nelson. Okay, it seems Nelson is also off the call. Then Nelson is back. Hello, Nelson.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Hmm.
Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So we'd like you to kindly pick up from where Kwabena couldn't really continue because of the internet break. So the question
Yeah.
was, imagine startups are focused on
Yes.
building payment solutions. Yes. What effect does this have on other tech startups that don't require, yes, facilitates growth? Okay, that's the question.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think Kwabna, I was actually hearing Kwabna before he went off, and I would say that, I mean, first of all, it doesn't have to be a zero game where once we're winning here, we are losing on another place. I would argue that we could place enough attention to the places where emphasis is needed most. So there is, as usual, the fintech place. You have the health tech. There's ed tech. I think there is also the wave. Various waves come with different shades of things. Um, j- Previously, you had a lot of people looking at things like ed tech, and there was health tech. Now it's fintech. I think the wave will come down a bit, but over time, things will normalize where you see people pursuing the areas of their interest, not just because it's a wave, but this is what they are interested in. Also, I wouldn't say that. So, in places like the natural resource exploration, you can talk about the Dutch disease, where something like focusing on cocoa or focusing on gold or focusing on oil takes off attention of nations from other sectors. In the tech space, it is not entirely like that. And again, as I mentioned, it's still a zero sum game. We have people
Yeah.
deploying their technology and their skills and innovation skills towards where the market is looking for. So at the same time, there are those who are doing security tech or secure tech. There's agri tech, which is still getting a lot of traction, and there's still health tech. So it is not entirely taking attention of that. I think the situation is the fact that when it comes to big announcements in funding, that is where you would typically see the traction, and so it creates pressure that's happening. But there's still a lot going on in the other areas of tech, and we by the day get seeing lots of innovations around various spectrum of things. So it's not really putting everything else behind and pursuing fintech. That's what I would think.
Okay. It seems Kwabna is back, so you can continue from where you stopped. Kwabna. Yeah, your line went off. Can you please proceed for us?
Sure. I think Nelson has said it all, so I just ended there.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'd like to take your last words, then we'd come to the end of the show, starting from Nobet, since you're here with me in the studio.
All right. For me, I think it's been a very insightful conversation. And like I said, I mean, we are not going to see fintech being the market leader for a very long time. Like previously, we've seen e-commerce, logistics, and other sites. We are going to see a deconcentration of the fintech craze, it'll come down a little bit, and fund and investors would, investors wouldn't want to maintain that. They don't want where competition is. They also want to explore markets where there are other opportunities, so that they can diversify their risk and bet on other emerging areas where they think they might see more fintechs in. So, I mean, in Ghana, for instance, we it's likely we might see a unicorn, especially looking at the strategy that, from the fintech side, especially looking at the strategy that ZPay is taking, trying to go into acquisition deals across Africa. Like a friend of mine said, Achu, the founder of Bitsica. So he said, I mean, if you are building a fintech in Ghana, you don't build for the Ghanaian market, because there's no skill, in terms of market size, in terms of distribution, is very low and expensive. So if you are building a fintech startup in Africa, in Ghana, you have to build with Nigeria and the rest of Africa in mind, because Nigeria has the market. So I like the strategy that ZPay is taking, and I think if they are able to replicate that model in other emerging sectors, in other emerging markets where there are financial inclusion gaps, especially like Francophone Africa, we are going to see them become unicorns very soon. And also, in terms of my next bet on unicorn status, on the other side of the startups, I see M Pharma becoming a unicorn soon.
Yeah,
Looking
the
at
health tech.
the rate at which they are growing,
Yeah.
and it still brings us back to what Daniel and Nelson are saying. I mean, strategic partnerships, collaborations, and M&A deals helps you to what expand into other markets. So even if you're in a market where you have very lower market opportunity or market size, it gives you that strategic positioning to what attracts market opportunities across other emerging markets. So Mpharma is doing great, and I think if they keep replicating that, I mean, they are on a road to become a unicorn soon. I wish everyone that is doing great stuff within the fintech space very well, and also those in the other emerging sectors that feel funding is not coming through. I mean, this gives them the opportunity to create enough value to tell the story well, and I also believe that the media is a strong catalyst to exposing the other ecosystem. So, like what Digital Times is doing, you guys need to intensify what you are doing, so that other hidden sectors locally that have such innovations going on and can have that voice for people to see what they are doing, so that they attract the needed funding to help them scale. I mean,
Okay.
it's been a very great session, and thank you for hosting
Okay.
me.
Thank
Yeah,
you. And we'll continue doing what you're doing.
sure.
Don't
Thank
worry.
you.
Okay. Nelson, you'd like to take your last words, please.
Okay, so
Yes. Your
I would
final words,
say,
Nelson.
yes, I mean, final words. I would believe that most entrepreneurs who want to build a venture would take time to understand what the market is looking for, what the market is asking, and also quite importantly, where they could also have some what you call early customers or visionary customers as well, what their skill set to help them. And I'm seeing when it comes to investment in fintech, it's basically as I mentioned previously, it ticks most of these boxes. I mean, nobody goes there without the right skills, but quite importantly, there is a huge buzz around that because you see big tickets and investors are able to understand the communication or the pitch. When it's a fintech, I could readily tell you that I'm going to process $1 million worth of transactions in a month, and let's say 2% of that is our revenue, and da 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 da. Those are very easy to communicate, and I think we could look at how entrepreneurs could look at examples from them and deploy it to other sectors that they are thinking of. But also, quite importantly, we shouldn't see it as an end game or as a means an end in itself, but we should see fintechs as a means to an end. Uh, if you see a very good fintech solution, question is how could you possibly integrate that solution into other areas and other sectors? And once we're able to do that, we would have a more of a comprehensive approach towards building our ecosystem and not a silos approach. This is a fintech and that's it. But it's a fintech. I operate in the health sector. I'm in the agribusiness sector. How could I possibly work with them to integrate. And most of them have ready APIs that could work in various sectors. And I think there is a need for more collaboration, even within the fintech sector. There are verticals that you could also look at how you could collaborate and work together on that. And eventually, hopefully, we could build a Ghanaian fintech unicorn.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you for
much.
having me.
Daniel,
Okay.
your final words.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Sure. So I would say one, uh, positioning is very key for them. Looking at the stages that they are in, positioning is very key. Two, I would say their business model innovations. They should keep on iterating to fine tune it to meet the right audience, the right market, the right investors, and all that going forward. Three, I would say they should be mindful of the team they are putting together or they are bringing on board. Or if they don't, they should try to get the quality talent that they are looking for that can meet the need at hand. Then lastly, research. Market research is key to understand what the the customers are looking for, which aspect of the market is ready for them. If not, they'll still be doing single or smaller volumes, thinking that they've reached and become more complacent. But they should have more hunger in achieving what they want to achieve and use the bigger fintechs within the African market as a motivation to do what they are doing, because there are opportunities around and there are investors trooping in Ghana to look for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Norbert. Thank you, Nelson, and thank you, Kwabna, for this conversation. But it seems before we wrap up, there's a question here. Somebody just sent in a question. We'd like to read that. And yes, so some data sets prove we have more fintech than homegrown. We have more foreign fintech than homegrown fintech. Why is this? What are the position of the hubs and incubators building the first fintech unicorn from Ghana? Norbert.
Yeah, I mean it's about who is first to market, who has been able to secure the that size of funding to expand. So if you come into Ghana, you have the likes of Paystack, Flutterwave. I mean, all the payment solutions are done by like
That's
Nigerian,
Nigeria, yeah.
yeah, Nigerian startups. So I mean, it's about who has the market share or who has the market power to penetrate within this space. So I mean, it's we are. I mean, we are still seeing growth. We are still seeing the likes of Express Pay. They are growing slowly, and now ZPay, who is positioned to do what facilitate cross-border payments. So I mean, it's going to take the position of some of the fintechs that are likely to come. And it's not a fault that we didn't enter the market first, but it's because these guys that are coming into these markets are coming from developed markets and are tapping into other emerging markets that they can expand to. I think what we can do as an ecosystem is to keep, like Nelson said, the collaboration, because if we don't join forces together, we can't build very tangible solutions that would be very identical for people to affiliate with, rather than spreading so much that we all we are all trying to fight the same um, a small size handful of customers. So we are still going to have we are still going to have that little bit of competition, especially competing with foreign tech coming in. But the only way we can stabilize that is through collaboration. And on the regulator side, okay, reduce the minimum capital requirements. That should give fintechs a loosened barrier to entry. And I think if we see that, we are going to see more developments on the side. And I saw the final notes that what are the roles of incubators, accelerators in driving this growth. I mean, the incubators and accelerators are doing their very best. Ghana Tech Lab is doing their very best, and MEST is doing their very best, and other hubs are doing their very best to make sure that we are building the startups. But I mean, like Daniel said, it's up to the startups to make sure that they are assembling the right team. They are looking forward to the to corporate partnerships like MTN and the other large corporate giants to tap into their markets to reach out to their customer bases rather than working in silos. So I think we are going to get there. We just as for the hubs, we just provide the funding. We provide a business advisory. If there's a need for market access, we build our market development to give fintechs access to those markets to help them scale. But the rest is up to the fintechs and also the regulators.
Okay, thank you very much, Norbert. Thank you, Nelson, and thank you, Kwabena, for being on our show. So we'll be back with Digital Factory in August.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In August, yes, 12th of August 2021. So stay tuned, and you can follow us on social media, Digital Times Africa on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Instagram. You can also check out our stories and all our articles at Digital Times Africa. So thank you so much, and we see you next month.